Hi, you've arrived at the Convergence Corner, a podcast series from Print and Promo Marketing and ASI Media, where we speak to distributors who bring together print and promotional products in their business. I'm Brendan Menapace, Content Director for Print and Promo Marketing.
I'm Chris Ruvo, Executive Editor for ASI Media.
And today our guest is Domonique Downing. Domonique is the owner of Big Frog Custom T-shirts and more in Fayetteville, Georgia. But Domonique has an interesting path that led her to the print and promotional products world. Before opening her business in February, she has worked for 6 years as a sustainable packaging scientist for Coca-Cola, using her scientific background in chemistry to bring recycled materials and eco-friendly alternatives to one of the biggest companies in the world. Domonique, thanks so much for joining us today. Can you give us a bit more background on yourself and how you went from the scientific world to in packaging to now, owning your print and promo business?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Again, I'm Domonique Downing. I grew up in North Carolina, a Tar Heel. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill where I studied chemistry first. I originally thought I was going to be a medical doctor, but then I got an opportunity to work in a chemistry lab and realized I really enjoyed this. I think I'm going to stick to this for my career. And so from there, I went to grad school at the University of Maryland, College Park, where I
As
got
a
my
UNC
PhD.
undergrad? That's almost blasphemy.
I know, and I supported the Terrapins until the Tar Heels came to town. But other than that,
I was
I
going to say
definitely
some
had a
conflict
blast
of
there.
interest there for sure.
I know, and then they left the ACC while I was
I
there,
know.
so the rivalry isn't
So that was
as
your
strong
fault
as it
then,
used to be.
basically. Yeah.
Mhm.
I know, I tore everything up. But yes, I studied chemistry there, got my PhD, and shortly after being at Maryland, I started into my chemical career, starting first at the Dow Chemical Company, where I worked for about 4 years, and then shortly thereafter, I made my way to Georgia, where I very briefly worked at Jindal Films, working on polypropylene films. So that was actually my first sort of big foray into the packaging space. I did do some packaging projects at Dow Chemical as well. But Jindal was really a good stepping stone to work my way to the Coca-Cola company, where I was really able to focus on packaging in the food and beverage space.
Now, can you tell me a
Um,
little bit about, just because these are really, different worlds, how did your background in this sustainable packaging kind of inform you for this new career path with promotional products? Or what lessons did you bring to this new chapter?
And if I could make that an annoying double question, like how did you get there too? Like
That's a good addition there.
that's just as interesting to me. It's like
yeah,
PhD scientist printing and promo. That's a step.
yeah. So it's kind of twofold. One, so I am a scientist. I enjoy that part of my career in my life. But I also have a very creative side as well. I've always been into painting, art, crafts, crocheting. I got into sewing during the pandemic. I've always had an itch to, focus on that creative side as well. And, there is some creativity in the science world, but for the most part, the way my brain works, I've, been able to enjoy that side of my life outside of my career. I even very briefly had a small business where I was, doing T-shirts and other promotional items for friends, and for some of their jobs as well. So I was always sort of doing some of those things, but outside of my immediate career. Also within the corporate space, so sort of, relating my scientific career to what I'm doing now, there are a lot of skills and learnings that I have to bring to this space, whether it be through project management, working with people, solving challenges, even using the scientific method here and there in the store has been interesting in a way. But a lot of those skills I've been able to use and bring over to the Big Frog business. And so far, it's been fun. And while corporate America was very good to me, I very much had an itch to sort of do things on my own. And so I looked into some franchising opportunities. And when I saw Big Frog and got to learn more about it, I was all in. I already, had sort of that interest in the promotional space as it was. Then also meeting everyone at the franchise and seeing how helpful and very almost family oriented they are as an organization. And I know a lot of companies say that, but I genuinely felt that way upon meeting everyone and still do now that they're, helping us meet challenges that we're running into. And so it's been really good for me. And the move has been one because of the space in which we're in. We're making shirts. We're, making people happy. That's our job. And so I really enjoyed that and being able to do so in a creative way. But then also having the challenge of going about it on my own, but not by myself through the franchise.
That's really cool. It's always cool when you can, the thing with promos, you have something tangible that you're giving to someone else, and you can immediately see that payoff when they receive it.
Yeah.
Like in some ways, it almost seems like it's a perfect, business or medium, if you will, to work in because there is a definite, like you say, like there's a science to these things. There's a science to running a business. There's a science to the processes that you do. But then there is that creative component that you have to bring, and that brings joy to people. So that seems like a perfect melding of both sides of your personality.
Yes, it's been a really good opportunity for me, and working with my team of designers who are the really creative people. It's fun to see, our customers' vision really come to life through the technology and knowledge and skills that we have.
Now, for someone like you who's so knowledgeable with, sustainability and, like the packaging side of things, you can speak on this really well. How crucial is sustainability and eco-friendliness, especially for, things like food and beverage products, like, water bottles or packaging, and using eco-friendly materials or recycled materials? How crucial is that in the promo space now that you're involved in this world?
Yes, that's a really good question. I think sustainability is a very important factor, regardless of the space that you're in. There's waste and things you can do to minimize the waste, making sure you're using the right materials if at all possible, and then making sure the processes that you're using themselves are, both not only economically feasible, but also you're doing the best you can for the world. You don't want to unnecessarily have a negative impact when there are better options for that. I think it's important in the promo and clothing space because we're now in a time where we have the opportunity to, in some cases, use more sustainable clothing. And then also packaging is also going to be a factor, not only in the promo space, but food and beverage, of course, but in virtually any space. There's opportunities to making sure that, okay, I don't have to be so wasteful here. Yes, we can still use branding and things like that, but how can we do it more efficiently? In our store in particular, we use paper bags. We even have the capability of printing right onto our bags to give that pop of color that we want for promo, and also to customize for our customers as well. So we can still get creative by doing things as smart as possible, using appropriately sized packaging as well. So not overdoing it is also crucial, and a good way to make sure that we're being as responsible as possible.
And I'm curious in your interactions with customers. Now, is this just something that you're kind of doing just as a matter of course? But are you also telling customers what you're doing or advising them in ways to be more sustainable? Are you telling them basically about how you're trying to operate sustainability? Like, is that sustainably, excuse me, is that something that's part of the conversation?
Sometimes it's not always intentional, but sometimes it does come up. Consumers ask, or are these materials safe? And we let them know, yes, they're eco-friendly, and that's intentional by the franchise. And so we try to do our part by making sure we're doing things as wisely and carefully as we can. So those things do come up, but it's a good question as to whether we can, be a bit more intentional about having those conversations.
Gotcha.
I love what you said about, appropriately sized packaging. I think that's such a no-brainer, but yet I think a lot of people might not think about that. They might just want, like, bigger space, bigger logo. They want something bigger, or just not
Yes.
not even think about it. You don't need something gigantic for something that fits and rattles around in there and all of that. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really good point. So I know it is early days for you. You haven't been at Big Frog too long, but
Mm-hmm.
can you think of a job you've worked on? And you alluded to this a second ago with things like printing onto the paper bags. Can you think of a job you've done that blended this, traditional print and promotional products like apparel or drinkware or anything like that, that combine the two and maybe felt especially interesting or fun to work on or challenging, anything like that?
Not so we've only been open for about 2 weeks now, so not in particular yet at
Mhm.
this location, but I mentioned in a previous world I did some small customizations on my own. And at that time, I had a job for a friend's company where they needed some shirts and a couple promotional items just to give away at like a networking event. And so I took the opportunity to one, heat press their shirts, but then also made them some like promotional bags to give away. And that was also a really good way to stuff some of the shirts and reduce the amount of, additional packaging that they were receiving. So to show that, we can sort of reuse and repurpose these items. So not only can you have the shirts you need, but also give these bags away to either, the same people that are getting the shirts or potentially to their employers or employees, so that it's a good representation on how to reuse something that, can also serve as promotional itself. And then, as I mentioned here in the store, we decorate our own bags, and there's opportunity for us to do something similar for some of our customers should they have that need.
I think that's, you remember when you say reduce, reuse, recycle, people might think recycle first, but reuse is up there too, and you can bring that into promo too of like the bag can be the packaging and or you can find creative ways to integrate the products themselves into the usefulness of the packaging and all of that.
Yes. hmm Yes. And so, of course, everything didn't fit in the bags, but we can do our part to just reduce as well. So
Hmm.
it was a good opportunity to demonstrate that.
So, in any of your previous chapters here, it could be, when you were working with Coca-Cola or when you were working on projects on your own or now that you were at Big Frog, can you remember a time you've run into a major roadblock when you were working on some of these jobs? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So I guess at Coca-Cola, it was honestly usually some sort of pricing or supply chain issue. But in my short time in the promotional space, we've run into some colors, into some problems with the technology. Sometimes certain colors don't print as well, and so we have to sort of fight through, that sort of challenge. But oddly enough, sometimes we just take a step back, breathe, go back to basics, and then even sometimes apply the scientific method. Okay, what's our problem? Okay, what's our hypothesis? What are a couple variables we can test? And then so sometimes my employees say, well, let's do them all. I'm like, no, maybe do them one at a time. So then we know what's really causing that stepwise improvement. And so we've had to do that a few times actually. And it's almost fun when we get through it. We're like, okay, that makes sense. We can document this now. And this could just be our best practice. Sometimes it's not even, oh, this is a one-time problem. No, this is how we need to do it every time. And so we're sort of building that case around a couple of issues that we're running into. So it's good to just be able to bring that approach of problem solving, using their past experiences, as well as they've been into this decoration space as well. And using that to make sure that we're, solving our problems for our customers so that when they walk through the door, they don't even know there was a problem. That's the most ideal case.
That's the
But
best.
it's been fun so far, and I'm sure we'll run into more and we'll get through them together.
I
Is
think it
there is
speaks.
there one thing you could think of that like that comes to mind? And it's okay, and we're putting you on the spot. It's okay if you can't. But
Oh,
like
that's
just that
okay.
that that like exemplifies that, like how you're like, I just love that. Like let's like PhD applies the scientific method and
Hmm.
here's how it works. Or that's a lot. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally said that to one of my employees after we figured out an issue. Like we just had a problem where our store does have white ink, and it's a little bit different than the colored ink that we have at our disposal. It has that, I'm sure, TiO2, titanium oxide in it. So it's thicker, it can clump and that sort of thing, and it doesn't always lay down flat if conditions aren't right. And so we had to run through a number of variables, I'll call them, to sort of try to solve the problem, get that laid down, thickly coated, but not too thick, of course. And so when we got through solving the problem, I said, wow, this was a scientific method. And they were like, yeah, I remember that from school. And I said, jokingly, I hated to, bring it back to that being a scientist and everything, but it really felt that way. And, they appreciated it and, understood taking the time to sort of walk through things step by step to get it.
No, absolutely. And I think it speaks to the probability of your long-term success here that you find that kind of thing fun. I think a lot of people would not call working through all those steps to identify a problem fun. So if you're taking that in stride, I think that's a really good thing.
Thanks.
So go ahead, Brendan.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I'm interested too, in given this extensive background that you have in sustainability, and you bring what we call maybe an outside industry perspective, right? You're at Coca-Cola, you're working in the scientific field. Just how, and I know it's early days for you, but how might this industry evolve to more in sustainability? Like, do you have to become more sustainable? Like you've touched on that a bit, but is there other things that come to mind just from your broader experience that could be brought to bear here?
Yeah, I think just in the materials we're using, I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, but making sure that the vendors that we're using to get our materials are taking their packaging and some of the things that they're doing. I won't say more seriously because, I don't see any big red flags, but just also making sure that we have our conversations with them, that sustainability is still important to them. I know things are kind of changing broadly a bit in the sustainability space, but we want to make sure that it remains important to us as well as to those that we buy from and also to our customers. When we have packaging and things that we're giving to them, we should be letting them know how to dispose of or recycle that if at all possible, letting them know that there are sustainable clothing options as well. I know they can be pricier, especially now a lot of them are still new. So, we can't reasonably expect everyone to buy plant-based materials, but we can let them know that some of those things are available. And also just looking for ways to increase the amount of those items that are available and making sure that, we're properly handling our waste as appropriately as possible.
I think that's huge. There's so many people, especially as, younger generations are aging into, buying groups, that transparency and sustainability is so huge. They want to buy from companies that they know and can verify, like they have the receipts to back it up, that these are, greenwashing is such a problem. So to be able to say, like, put your money where your mouth is and show that these are sustainably sourced products is so huge.
Right. Yeah, it really is. And greenwashing is a huge issue across industries where companies want to say, oh, this is sustainable, but got to verify it or at least look like you're not intentionally trying to, get over on people. But I think for the most part, most companies are doing their best.
Yeah, lie.
That's the word.
Yeah. Lie. So, it's a real thing. And so it's important to show that, we're operating with integrity. So our customers trust us. And so we know that we're also doing the right thing.
So since you do have such a unique, I think, career path, what would your biggest piece of advice be for a distributor who maybe wants to do this too? And, or someone who isn't in promo necessarily to break into this industry, or for someone who is in promo to, add more sustainability to their company?
Yes, I would say that, everyone has a role to play and everyone can get involved and involve more. They already are doing what they know how to do. And it's easy as just starting from home, looking at what you're buying, what you're consuming, how you're disposing of it. If people want to go beyond that, it's good to, join organizations that are available to them either locally or online, ones that'll teach them so they can learn more. And in some cases, if people are able, contributing financially to some organizations that are, contributing positively to the space is also helpful. Um, I think it's important for people to get involved locally as well as nationally by, writing your representatives and making sure that sustainability remains a priority, especially for our country coming from the chemicals and beverage space. I know that our country in particular has a long way to go. And so, but honestly, everyone can just do their part personally, because while we may contribute just a little bit, there are 8 billion people on Earth. So everything that we do has an impact. And so people just need to do the best they can, and play as big a part as they can, and also encourage others in their friend and family circles to do the same.
Awesome stuff. Well, Domonique, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to add before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank you for inviting me. This was really fun, and it was awesome to meet you both.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you everyone for watching and listening. Once again, this has been Convergence Corner.